What category of well-being do you personally struggle to maintain?
I don't
What do you
struggle
mean?
about anything in my life.
Wait, can you explain that? Because I feel like I have a great career, I have wonderful relationships, I feel financially secure, I try to take care of myself, go to the gym, eat right, but it does feel like all of it's a struggle.
I've never felt that.
Welcome, Dr. Deepak Chopra. We're so excited to have you here, but before we get into it, I need to tell you that myself and our guest, Dr. Deepak Chopra, are both non-client promoters of SoFi Wealth, LLC, and have both been compensated by SoFi for our time.
And I need to tell you that I'm a registered representative of SoFi Securities, LLC, and an investment advisor representative with SoFi Wealth, LLC. Basically, it's my job to make sure we're not misrepresenting the truth around investing or anything else personal finances.
Thank you so much for being here today.
It's great to be with you.
We're really excited to chat.
Now that we got the legal stuff out of the way, a little bit of background about you for our viewers. Doctor and founder of Chopra Global, author of over 90 books, most of which are New York Times bestsellers, and just an integrative health and wellness expert.
Thank you.
Now I think we're kind of, the first section we want to talk through is a lot of times as we're working with entrepreneurs, they are trying to balance really kind of like building their business, having their personal life, and all the things that come along with it related to their finances. So I think we'd love to just get started talking through kind of your journey and your overall approach and how you view money throughout that entrepreneurial journey as you kind of built an empire over the years.
The way I view money is, in a very spiritual sense, is the law of giving and receiving, basically.
Okay.
And the more you give, the more you receive, and vice versa. But what you give has to be of value. Okay, so money is the exchange of values, basically.
Can I ask a quick follow-up question? You talk about, money representing value. How does one ascribe value to certain things, and why are some things valued more than others?
I do something called a soul profile. It's not the LinkedIn profile, it's a soul profile. It's about what people value. I can't determine what you value. So, I usually ask people, what's a meaningful life to you? What does abundance mean to you? What does good health mean to you? What does well-being mean to you? What does love mean to you? What does meaning or purpose mean to you? Do you have any heroes, heroines in history, mythology, religion? So you get a pretty good idea.
Has this always been your view, or were there events or mistakes along your own personal journey that kind of formed this over time?
I was brought up in a tradition where meaning and purpose came number one.
Okay.
I give thanks to my mother, who basically said, there are two goddesses. There's the goddess of wealth and abundance, and there's the goddess of wisdom. So you should pursue the goddess of wisdom, and then the goddess of wealth will get jealous and she'll pursue you. So don't go directly after the money.
Yeah.
Go after the wisdom, the service, the value, and the money will come. So I used to always ask my mother if I was, going to do this, that, the other, would ask her, where's the money going to come from? And she said, from wherever it is at the moment.
But what about folks who might be living paycheck to paycheck, or have to work that job where they're chasing money to keep the lights on and keep a roof over their head?
I arrived in 1970, in July 1. That's now, 54 years ago almost. At that time, in India, you couldn't leave the country with more than $8. I had an uncle in London who lent me $100, so I had $108 in my pocket. But I, stopped on the way in Paris, and I thought, 108 is a very auspicious number in Indian mythology. I said, what should I do with this? And I spent it all in one night at the Moulin Rouge. And so when I got to this country, I had no money, zero. I had to actually make a collect call to my hospital to pick me up from the airport. So I started my career in this country with this.
Yeah.
I pursued my career in medicine and I did my residency. I used to get $202 every 2 weeks as my salary. Wasn't even enough to pay rent. in an apartment. So I used to work then, after I finished my hours as a resident, I used to work in the emergency room for $5 an hour. And if I worked all night, that was $50 or $45 to $50. And for me, that was a huge amount of money because it helped me buy groceries, pay the rent. My wife got pregnant, and we were told that, the insurance didn't cover her pregnancy. I couldn't afford to have my first child delivered in the United States. So I bought a ticket for $350. Kuwait Airlines sent her to India to have my first child. Unfortunately, she can't run for president for that reason. But, that's the price I had to pay. So I did struggle.
Yeah.
I mean, I struggled a lot. But I always kept that one thing in mind. How do I give value?
And I love the backstory, because I think it's really easy a lot of times where you look from the outside and you see someone who is successful that says X, Y, or Z, and you think it's always been that way. But most of the time, that's through the hard lessons, the adversity faced, things like that. That's so valuable for people to hear.
Every adversity is an opportunity. If you think there's an adversity or a problem, you have to reframe it first as a challenge, and then reframe the challenge as an opportunity.
Interesting.
Before we learn more about how Dr. Deepak Chopra sees the world, let's take a quick break to learn more about SoFi. Brian, one thing I will keep talking about until the day I die is a high-yield savings account. It's just so important.
It really is, and it has to check a lot of boxes.
Especially the high-yield box, because you want to earn more money on your money.
And no account fees.
That's always a plus. And there's always getting your paycheck up to 2 days early.
An extra FDIC insurance up to $2 million through a network of participating banks.
Exactly. Check out SoFi.com/richerlives to open a SoFi checking and savings account and start reaching your financial goals. Do you think it's harder now than when you were coming up to find meaning and purpose and value? I feel like there's so many people now who are 20 years down a career that they thought they wanted, and they wake up one day and they're like, I don't want this anymore.
It's, again, the way our society functions. You're a product of your education and your social conditioning. So yes, it is harder for a lot of people right now because they're looking at social media and comparing themselves with other people and forgetting that they have something unique to offer, but they're trying to be a copycat, and that never works.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. And then another thing, earlier this year, we did a survey where we surveyed employees, and we found that 86% of them were stressed financially.
It's true.
And looking back on your approach as far as abundance, being mindful about money, and really kind of the intersection of all different aspects of well-being, and financial being one of them. So I'd love to get your thoughts on, for people who are stressed financially.
When you ask people, what are you stressed about? They say money. But actually, if you go deeper, you'll find it's, at least that's my insight, most people are most stressed about relationships. They don't have this ability to have nurturing relationships because everybody's trying to impress everybody else, and there's no authenticity in relationship. And then money is the excuse, She left me because I wasn't making enough money. Well, if she was really in love with you, she wouldn't have left you for money. So there are ways to actually convince people that if you manage your stress, if you sleep well, if you do some exercise, if you have healthy food, and if you maintain your biological rhythms and you literally go with the flow. I have a criteria for well-being where some people are in survival mode, some people are in adaptation mode, some people are thriving, some people are flourishing, and some people are flowing. That's my ultimate.
So flowing's the best.
Yeah,
okay.
But that takes a bit.
What category of well-being do you personally struggle to maintain?
I don't
What do you
struggle
mean?
about anything in my life.
Wait, can you explain that? Because I feel like I have a great career, I have wonderful relationships, I feel financially secure, I try to take care of myself, go to the gym, eat right, but it does feel like all of it's a struggle.
I've never felt that, except in my internship years and residency, fresh out of medical school, because, I had all the training, but, seeing a lot of trauma actually makes you feel sad.
Yeah.
And so I struggle with that. But, I generally don't struggle. I question the meaning of existence. I'm not shocked that people are not surprised. I'm shocked that people are not surprised that they exist, or there is the universe that exists. If you were perpetually surprised by the fact that you exist, you would have eternal gratitude and you will flow, because in the end, the ultimate chapter is death, and even with these young entrepreneurs, when they're talking about their exit, I say, have you ever thought of your final exit? Which is death. And if that is not going to be elegant, then you're wasting your time. If at the end of your life you can't say, it was joyful, what's the point of existing? We have a universe that evolved 13.8 billion years ago. Our lifetime is a flash of lightning in the sky. And a lifetime goes by like a flash of lightning, and it's over. So every moment is precious, sacred for me. And these days, I'm now 77, I'm looking forward to my death. And
you look forward to it?
Why not? Because everybody has to die.
Are you just tired? You want to rest, or?
No. I look forward to a elegant exit. My idea is not to be sick. I'm 77. I have zero sickness. My biological age is less than half.
You got to drop the workout plan after this for us.
You're giving me the opportunity to show off. But my chronological age is 77. My biological age is probably half that. And, I have normal blood pressure, heart rate variability, nothing wrong with me. My cholesterol levels, so I'm in totally good health. At some point, I'll be able to say, been there, done that, close my eyes in meditation and take off. So I look forward to death as the next adventure.
Oh, wow. It's a very, very different take. I mean, I've never thought about it like that. I just want to live until like I'm 105 and drag this out for as long as I can.
Well, if you're having a really good time...
I am.
Then...
Even though I struggle.
Okay.
Okay, so one of the things that you say that I love is you talk about taking a mindful approach to your finances to kind of create abundance. I'd love to get your thoughts on how do you do that, and how do you kind of differentiate between needs and wants, and really ultimately embracing that approach for someone?
Yeah, again, I'll share something from my personal history. So, I told you about my earlier career when I was struggling. And I still go back to what my mother had said when I left the country. She said, when you have enough money, even if a little bit extra, she said, save 10%, buy a gold coin.
Okay.
And those days, the gold coins were popular. And so I started doing that. And before I knew it, in a few decades, I had an overabundance of gold. And so, that was very prudent advice. No matter what you earn, put 10% away every time. So you get a check for $200, $20, put it away, and don't even think about it.
Do you wish you had, instead of buying gold coins, bought, index funds or something that would have been a little bit more liquid?
I wasn't literate enough. I wasn't financially literate enough. So I was going through traditional homegrown advice. But, I didn't even know what that meant at that time. So I couldn't have done that. But it's good. You should be literate. Financial literacy is very important. That's why you need somebody like a financial advisor. Yeah, I completely... Because not everybody knows what the products are there, what the services are there.
Yeah.
And financial literacy is definitely important. One of the things, personally, I struggle with the most is like, okay, I know I should be setting aside that money. But in order to do that, you have to spend less money. And as things kind of become more expensive and, there's all sorts of different things to do, how do you help people kind of think about their spending and making the decisions on, I'm going to cut spending on this or that or any other thing to get there?
I see a lot of people buying stuff that they don't need.
Okay.
With money that they haven't earned to impress people that they don't like. Okay, so if you just get rid of that one habit, you're buying this because somebody else has an iPhone 15 and you have an iPhone 14, but it's working. But, we have so conditioned our children that is the only thing. As soon as something new comes, whether you need it or not, you buy it. So it requires discipline, but again, it requires education and self-awareness.
I love because when you position it that way, buying something you don't need with money you don't have to impress people you don't like anyway, it's like it's just kind of like it puts a different lens on it.
It shows you how insane our society is.
Yeah, I bought a lot of designer bags in my early 20s because all of the cool girls had the designer bags, and I wanted to be a cool girl.
That's it.
And didn't work out. Have you ever bought anything that you're like, oh man, I shouldn't have done that?
I bought a Volkswagen with no money when I came in. What happened is I was in front of a showroom during my internship in a small place.
There was like a dealership across from the hospital?
Dealership from the hospital, Plainfield, New Jersey.
Okay.
And this guy comes out and he says, "You like that, don't you?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Why didn't you get one?" I said, "I don't have any money." He says, "Come on in, what do you do?" I said, "I'm training to be a doctor." He said, "That's enough. All you have to do is
sign on this line.
Line, and you can drive it home." Now, as you just mentioned, the dealership was across the hospital, and I was in a very small town where you could walk to Main Street and do whatever. I didn't need that car as an intern, 23 years old. But I came home with that, and then the next day I went to another store. This time it was television, because I'd never seen a television in my life till I came to the United States. There was no TV in India in 1970. And so I walked straight into the shop with a lot of confidence. I said, "I'm training to be a doctor. You have a yellow piece of paper? I want that TV set in color." And I walked out with the TV set to my dorm, where there were 20 other TV sets where I was living at that time.
Did you feel like it was like a momentum of bad financial decision making? It's like you make a couple bad calls and you continue to make bad calls, and if you make a couple good calls, you continue to have those good financial habits?
No, it wasn't even that. It was just this amazing thing that you can buy stuff without having any money. And it was actually quite enjoyable. Not because I needed the car or needed the TV set.
Okay, but what about when you actually had to pay for those things over time?
I kind of realized slowly that this is a very interesting world, especially America. We can actually do stuff that would be considered impossible in other societies.
And I think it's a relevant and great example, because if you think about it, that's when I got my first credit card, was when I was in college. And is either a towel or a koozie, where if I signed up for a credit card and I was like, wow, this is free money. And it forced me to learn some very hard lessons.
Yeah, the credit card debt is the biggest debt now. But on the other hand, credit cards are a very useful instrument, right?
Yep. Yeah, that's a good perspective, because really any financial instrument can be used for good or bad, depending on how you use it or how much.
How would you define money as a tool? Because so many people end up saying things like, money is evil, I hate money, money's terrible. But money is a tool that you can use to make your life richer or potentially, create problems. How would you reframe that thinking so that people can think of money positively or just in a better light?
My observation is that there are two categories of people who are never happy about money. One is the extremely poor, and the other is the extremely rich. Because the extremely poor you can understand.
Of course.
The extremely rich somehow confuse their self-worth with their net worth. So they constantly want to show off. I mean, if you have a car now, and Mercedes or Jaguar, now you want a boat, then you want an airplane, and it's never enough. And also their sense of self comes from showing the display of money. Self-worth is much more abundance than net worth.
But how do you think and be so happy with your life that you're like, I have enough? How does that thinking come about?
That is, I ask myself right now, am I enough right now? And the answer is yes.
But
It's
isn't
only
that
when you're
different
thinking
than-
about the future and regretting the past that you're not enough. Every human being is a gift. There's a poem in India, every child that is born is proof that God has not yet given up on human beings. Because we all have that abundance when we are born, till we are bamboozled by the hypnosis of social conditioning.
So we're enough, we as individuals, but how do you know when you have enough money?
You will never have enough money to be happy. Money is not the secret of happiness. So actually there's now some research on what is called the happiness equation. So it's H is equal to S plus C plus V.
Okay.
So H is happiness, S is set point or attitude towards life. Is it a problem? Is it an opportunity? C is conditions of living, and V is voluntary choices.
Okay.
And set point for happiness is determined by our childhood. If your parents were constantly complaining, condemning, criticizing, and playing the victim, you'll grow up to have an unhappy set point because your child, this is your neurons mirror your parents' neurons or your caretakers or your ecosystem. On the other hand, if your parents were always looking for opportunities and saying good luck is opportunity meeting preparedness, then you're always reframing adversities as challenges and as opportunities. So this happiness S set point is 50% of our daily happiness experience, just your attitude to life.
Oh.
Not just your attitude to life is 50% of it. Now you say, can you change somebody's set point? Because it's been conditioned. It has nothing to do with you. It's your environment, okay? Your parental environment. If they were struggling, then that's all you saw, okay?
Yeah.
So is there a way to change the set point? Yes, through mindfulness, through self-inquiry, through questioning your beliefs, etc. There are lots of ways, cognitive therapy, etc. But people are not aware that they can change the set point. Most people aren't. About 10 to 12%, so H is equal to S plus C. C is conditions of living, predominantly money. That is about 10 to 12% of your daily happiness.
Okay.
So if you win the lottery, let's say you're earning $100,000 a year, and now you win the lottery, you're making $20 million suddenly. You'll be ecstatic in the beginning. 6 months you'll plateau. 1 year you'll come back to your set point. In 2 years you'll be unhappier because you're now trying to park your money in the Bahamas, avoid paying taxes, watching the stock market, etc. So 10 to 12% is money. The third part is V. These are voluntary choices that we make every day. So we make two kinds of voluntary choices every day. The first are for personal pleasure. And for personal pleasure, the most frequent voluntary choice people make is shopping. We call each other consumers, which is an ugly word for a stardust being with self-awareness. But we think, oh, if I can just shop enough, I'll be happy. So do those choices make us happy? Yes, but transiently. For a day, 2 days, then you have to go buy the shop and go shop again. There's another choice we can make every day, which is called fulfillment. And fulfillment is you feel contented. And fulfillment comes when you have meaning and purpose in your life, when you honor your values, when you make your choices based on your values, and when you know how to make other people happy. The fastest way to be happy is to make other people happy. So, if you, even with a little bit of money, if you care for someone, buy them a gift of appreciation. So attention, affection, appreciation, acceptance is with someone else is the fastest way to make happy. That's about 40% of your daily happiness experience. So there's a clear-cut research on this.
Yeah. Okay, well, I'm going to go buy my mom some flowers after this to make myself feel better.
That's it. Even if you don't, send her an emoticon and you'll give her a dopamine hit.
Oh, yeah.
That's a good idea. I love that equation. And speaking about things that I love, let's pause here to talk about another SoFi benefit.
Let me ask you a question, Brian. How many finance apps do you think the average person has on their phone?
I don't know, 1?
Wrong. 2.5.
What do you do with half an app? That's 1.5 more apps than people actually need.
That's why SoFi offers an all-in-one solution for your finances. We're talking banking, borrowing, investing, basically anything you need to get your money right. So delete all those extra apps and get with the bank that's helping you reach all your ambitions. Download the SoFi app now at sofi.com/richerlives.
So as a parent, side note, I have a 4 and a 6-year-old. So you mentioned kids. What do you think parents can do to teach their kids to have a good relationship with money?
Play.
Play, okay.
Play.
You know, aren't children always saying, I want to be this, I want to be that, they're dreaming. So play, act that their dreams.
Okay.
What did you want to be when you were a little kid?
Unfortunately, in India, you're only well-educated if you become a doctor or an engineer. That's Indian families.
That's very. My parents are Chinese immigrants as well, so doctor, lawyer, engineer. You get to pick one.
So that I was brought up with that, you know, and I assumed that's what. Actually, no. When I was 14, I wanted to be a writer, which I am, right? And I wanted to do fiction, nonfiction, and which I do now. But my dad wanted me to be a doctor because he was a very famous cardiologist. Yeah. So on my 14th birthday, he got me a bunch of books where the hero of every book was a physician. And so I read that book and I said, these guys are doing amazing things. I want to be like that. So I trained as a physician and a writer at the same time.
So I need to find books where the hero of the book is a financial planner.
That's right.
And then I give it to my kids.
Yeah, that's it. I think financial literacy should be part of education and even middle school or high school.
Agreed.
I don't think you'll find two bigger proponents of that.
No, of course not.
And that's one of the reasons we do this show. We also, like at SoFi, we launched like a financial education course, do a ton of stuff like that because it's not really taught.
Anywhere.
Yeah.
And it's the one thing that, you know, unless you are...
That people struggle with.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We learn math, science, history, English, how to write, everything. But would have been nice to know how to file a tax return or budget or save and invest and grow my wealth.
Yep.
We talked about kids a little bit. I want to know, how do you think finances play into relationships with family, with partners? Like, is there a way to set those healthy boundaries and not make it the number one thing?
Again, you know, when you try to change people's attitude when they're already adults.
You don't think people's attitudes can change as adults?
No, I said no, set point can change through mindfulness, inquiry, etc. But you have to be self-aware. If you're not self-aware, you can't change the set point. Self-awareness is the key to everything. So, you know, I used to tell my kids when they were growing up, I said, I don't want you to think about money at all. I want you to think of your unique gifts and talents and how you will help the world with them. My son has won 6 Emmys, and my daughter is an author of children's books, and they're both amazingly successful, more than I am. I have the notoriety, but they're more successful. And I told them, I don't want you to focus on money. It'll come if you do the right thing.
The goddess of wealth will chase you.
That's it, the goddess of wealth.
So I think, you know, one of the areas I'd love to get your opinion on is as people are kind of going down this journey, we talked about, you know, we get to establish habits and, you know, changing their overall approach to it. How much do you think they have control over versus like their situation controls? Because I've heard your thoughts on it with like overall like physical health and everything. But I'd love to get your opinion on that.
If you bring self-awareness to anyone, they feel in control. Self-awareness is the key. And self-awareness means being in touch with your true self, not with your selfie. We live in a society that has sacrificed themselves for their selfies.
That's it, yeah.
So that's it. So you are not your selfie. That selfie is what you want to use to impress other people. So I think when people are self-aware and they're brought up with self-awareness, they feel independent of the good and bad opinions of others. They're pretty fearless and they feel beneath no one. You know, that's the key. Self-awareness is the key.
I mean, it kind of reminds me of like financial planning, like going back to the world that I live in day out. You always start by, you know, going through discovery. where you really understand what's important, what do you have, what are you currently doing.
That's awareness, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Expand your awareness. That's it.
I'm almost thinking we need to change how we term it on our team at SoFi, that we should change it from a discovery approach to an awareness approach. Because that really...
Awareness is the key. The more aware you are, the more creativity you have.
Yeah. Now let's
creativity goes with awareness. Creativity is the key, right?
Yeah.
To success. So creativity comes when you're comfortable with uncertainty, when you're actually uncertainty and creativity go together. If you're attached to certainty, you're an algorithm. There's no creativity. Only algorithms are always certain, you know. And we have become biological algorithms. Everyone. I walk through New York City and I look at people and ask myself, are they sleepwalking or are they awake? You know, and it seems like
just going through the
everybody's an
motions.
algorithm.
Just going through the motions of the
Just
day.
going through the motions.
Yeah, and I think, you know, one of the things a lot of times we talk about when it comes to, I don't know, overall well-being and personal finances is like, okay, if people are struggling financially, that'll affect their overall well-being. Do you think the opposite is true? Where someone's well-being...
It is the opposite true. Okay. If you haven't slept at night, you can't focus at your work. If you wake up with a hangover or have an argument with your spouse, how are you going to perform?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. Because I think that's, honestly, that's probably a flaw of the financial industry. We always focus on that, like finances effect on everything else. But I mean, finance, we talked earlier, it's tough for people. And if you don't have any mental capacity left because you're hungover, you're tired, whatever it is, how are you going to make tough decisions?
Financial literacy, self-awareness.
The two keys, our takeaways for today: financial literacy and self-awareness.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Brian. Thanks.
So that was amazing. I got to ask, what was your key takeaway from that conversation?
I really loved that he said, the way that you achieve happiness is by making others happy. It definitely reminded me that I have some calls to return, some texts to send, and maybe some gifts to mail off to some friends.
Oh, man. I'll text you my address after this.
Perfect. What about you? What did you learn?
You know, I think the awareness and the gratitude piece was really interesting because it's something where I mentioned, like it's kind of like when I do it, we're in a great spot, but then I stop doing it, and it's so silly to stop doing it.
Yes, that was amazing. That's all we have for today. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure to subscribe to SoFi and like and share, and we'll see you next time.
Hi, it's me, Brian Walsh, aka Dr. Money, again to talk about some of the legal stuff. Though I am a certified financial planner professional, your finances are unique. That means anything I talked about today shouldn't be considered advice. Think of it more as high-level education or guidance.
And don't forget to subscribe.
Two take, Viv.
Bro, that ain't two takes. They changed the script. Brian, just make this face.
Yeah.